Do you want to complete the personal missions 3? If so, you're in the right video. Quick disclaimer before we get into the missions. This video will not cover the Windhunt, but this will mainly focus on the Dravec and the Blackrock. I don't think Windhunt is worth covering in this video, because it's not overly complex and the missions are quite straightforward. There are other good sources out there. If you want to look for those, feel free. I will leave all the links and the timestamps to each mission down in the description, so go down there if you want to look for a specific mission. Now, funnily enough, I had to jump on my second account because I was not able to view the missions on my main account after completing all of them. So here we are. One very important note about the Dravec's missions. For each of the conditions, you will have to complete the mission twice. And you have to complete it on different vehicles. This goes for all missions from 1 to 15. On the Blackrock, you will only have to complete the first 10 twice and the last 5 once. One more tip before we get the missions. I would highly recommend you to install the mod called Distance Marker. The Distance Marker will basically draw the distance between you and the enemy vehicle on top of his head, so you will not have to worry about the distance. For example, for missions like this, where you have to destroy tanks from a distance of 100 meters or less. This will come in very handy, and I would highly recommend you to get it. Vanguard 1. Be the top player in your team by damage cost, and destroy an enemy heavy tank. For this mission, I would just recommend you to play whatever heavy tank you choose, whatever heavy tank you are good at. I, for example, would recommend the Type 5 Heavy, as it's currently very overpowered, and the BC-79 Tier 11 tank, which I found to be very comfortable, and I found it easy to be top damage dealer on this tank. Vanguard 2. Cause damage to enemy heavy tanks by shooting them 8 times and cause 1500 HP of damage to enemy heavy tanks. For this mission, I would recommend a fast shooting tank, such as the T-110E5 or the successor T-803. Also, note that you will be able to load high explosive and just splash 8 times, boom boom boom, and the mission will count. You don't have to penetrate your shots, you just have to cause damage. And 1500 damage shouldn't be a problem if you do it at this tier. Vanguard 3, which is destroy 3 enemy vehicles of 3 different types, or cause 500 HP of damage by ramming. These 3 kills could be tricky, so I recommend you to go for the ramming. For this mission, I personally used IS-7 and the KR-1 that comes after the IS-7. It's just 1 ram and you will be done with the mission. Vanguard 4. Cause 3250 HP of damage to enemy vehicles, or block 2000 HP of damage while your vehicle is stationary. I would not recommend to go for the 2000 HP of blocking while stationary, and just play what heavies you are good at for 3250 HP worth of damage. This should be relatively simple. I would again recommend the Type 5 Heavy and the T-803 because they're currently very strong tanks, but play whatever you wish. Vanguard 5. Destroy an enemy vehicle during the first 4 minutes of the battle and cause 1500 HP of damage during the first 4 minutes of the battle. For this mission, I would recommend you to just use something that has either high burst or high alpha. At tier 10, tier 9, tanks that have 750 alpha or whatever, that works beautifully. I personally used the Skoda T56 and the BC-176. Why? Because these tanks have either high bursts or high single shot damage, so securing the kill is easy. But this should not be a problem, you know, because first 4 minutes is usually how long the battles take nowadays, so, you know, just play a normal battle. Vanguard 6. Cause 3500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles and destroy an enemy vehicle within the view range of your vehicle. For this, again, just play whatever tank you're comfortable with. I would recommend again the Type 5 Heavy and the BC-79 because they have high alpha, they go brawling. It's just a decent game on heavy tank, basically. Good luck. Vanguard 7. Have the total damage caused and the damage blocked by your armor equal to or exceeding 3 times the hit points of your vehicle. For this mission, I used the T803 and I used the BC176. With the BC176, I only caused roughly 3000 damage and I blocked the rest 2000, which was around 4 shots from tank destroyers that shot me while I was playing in a cooldown, and I got it done. If you're a confident player, I would recommend you to just go for the damage and you will probably block the rest of the damage on the way. Like for example a T110E5 could work if you dealt 5000 damage and you blocked roughly 1 to 2000 damage by accident from enemy bouncing you while you're side scraping or playing cooldown. Or if you don't think you can cause enough damage, I would just recommend you to stick to tanks that have like high armor, such as the VK from tier 8 that leading to mouse, or even type 4 heavy could be good in a tier 7 game. You just drive forwards and they will all bounce you in the current state of the game. Vanguard 8. Cause 2000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles from the same tier or higher by shooting them from a distance of 50 meters or less, or cause 4000 damage to enemy vehicles. For this mission, I would recommend again you play whatever the heavies you are most comfortable with. I completed this on the T803 and the BC79, and I would always recommend for you to go for the 4000 HP, because 2000 HP from 50 meters or less, it sounds relatively simple, but 50 meters is extremely little amount of range. Like, you will understand that this is not happening very often. So just go for the damage and play what you're comfortable with. Vanguard 9. Earn the high caliber award. So what is a high caliber? You need to deal at least 20% of enemy team's HP in your damage. You need to be the top damage on the whole game by damage dealt from both teams, and you need to not shoot an ally. If you shoot, it will automatically be cancelled and you will not be able to get the award. I did this mission on T803 and the hacker, but I was confident in my ability of playing at tier 11 and I also wanted to grind the upgrade on those tanks. At tier 11, 20% of the HP could mean 8000 damage, 9000 damage in some cases, very rare cases. Actually not 9000, 7 to 8000 roughly would usually be the high caliber. But what you can do is you can play a tier 8 tank. You can play a tank such as the Skoda or the BC at tier 8 if you have them. You can get down into the tier 6 game, which has roughly, let's say, 18,000 HP, and that will mean you only have to deal 4000 damage, and that way you can get a high caliber. Vanguard 10. Cause 4500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles, or cause 1500 HP of damage to tracked enemy vehicles. For this mission, I would recommend you to go for the 4,500 damage, as it's not really too much, and if you're confident in again playing your heavy tanks such as the 803, the Hacker, the BC79, whatever tier 11s, 4500 damage shouldn't be a big step for you to do. Alternatively, you can ask a platoon mate, your friend, to track somebody for you. Let's say they play a 57, they play a Foch, 50B, they track somebody, and then you shoot them, and this mission will be done in like 3 shots. And that's the easy way to do it. Vanguard 11. Destroy 3 enemy vehicles from a distance of 100 meters or less. Now for this mission, I would again recommend you to play a tank which is high alpha damage or high damage dump. I personally completed this on the Skoda T56 and I completed this on the BC176. Why? Because the BC has 800 alpha, kill stealing is easy, and the Skoda has a clip potential of 920, 460 times 2. If you want, you could even use the Skoda and the Project Ion, and that way you can do it on 2 tanks, which is basically the same tank, and you will be able to move on fast. And as I mentioned in the notes at the start of the video, please get yourself the distance indicator mod So you know exactly when people are within 100 meters of you while you do this mission. It will help you a lot. Vanguard 12. Cost 3500 HP of damage to enemy medium tanks and tank destroyers, or block 2000 HP of damage from enemy medium tanks and tank destroyers. For this mission, I used the Type 5 and I used the mouse. I positioned myself in a way where I was able to get shot by mediums and tank destroyers from one direction, from the same direction. I angled towards them and I just sat on the open, blocking 2000 damage, while they shot me over and over and over. Other good tanks for this could be the Type 4 Heavy, or even the Oni, but the lower tier you go, the harder it will be to block 2000 as the guns calibers get lower and lower. Vanguard 13. Destroy 3 enemy heavy or medium tanks, or cause 3500 HP of damage to enemy heavy or medium tanks. This mission, again, I would recommend you to play whatever heavy you're comfortable with. I played the Type 5 Heavy and the T803. I basically just went to the heavy flank and I dealt 3500 HP of damage to the heavy tanks. Simple as that. You can always try to go for the kills if you can, but again, 3500 HP of damage is way more consistent than trying to go for the kills. Vanguard 14. Cost 3500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles that hit your vehicle. For this mission, play your Type 5, play your mouse, play your Taschenratte, or anything that can easily soak up hits and everybody wants to shoot at. Also, a quick note about this mission: you don't have to wait for the enemy to shoot you before you shoot him. Let's say you shoot with a Type 5 3 times at an IS-7, 700, 700, 700, you will deal 2100 damage to him. The counter up top in your game, it won't tick up if the IS-7 hasn't shot you, but as soon as the IS-7 shoots you, it will go up by 2100. You do not have to wait for the tanks to shoot you, but of course, if somebody shoots you, I recommend you to focus them because that's secure damage. Vanguard 15. Cause, receive and block a total of 9000 HP of damage. For this mission, I would recommend you to just play your Type 5 Heavy, mouse and Taschenratte. If you have those, you're gonna be golden, and this mission is gonna be very easy. It's one of the easiest missions on the entire set. If you die on mouse and Type 5 Heavy, for example, you will only be left with roughly 5,500 damage to deal and to block. So that means you can do 3000 damage, block 2500 damage, and die, and your mission will be completed. It will be 9000 total. You can even crash off the cliff if you need to complete this 9000. If, for example, the game is over and you know you won't reach the next tank, but you still haven't died and you have 2000 HP, you can just jump off the cliff, try to crash your tank, and it will actually, you will lose your HP and it will count towards this total. One of the easiest missions. Ambush 1. Score 8 armor penetrating hits and cause 3000 HP of damage. For this mission, I used the Leopard 1 and I used recently buffed Concept 5. If you do the math, after 8 penetrations on Leopard 1, you will probably have roughly 3.3 to 3.4 thousand damage, so this fits perfectly. Of course, pick a tank that has a decent gun and just complete the mission. Simple as that. Ambush 2. Be the top player in the team by experience earned and cause at least 3000 HP of damage. For this mission, I have to highlight: do not snipe for this mission. You need to be top on XP, which means the best way to do it is by spotting your own targets, so you do not have to share the XP with your teammates who are spotting for you. So for this mission, I would recommend the T-57 Heavy. If you have the Stinger, play the Stinger. If you have Foch B, that's also great. You need to get close range, you need to spot your own opponents, and then you need to deal the damage. And that's how you will complete this mission the easiest. By sniping, you might share XP, and you will probably get way less XP as you would compared to normally spotting them for yourself. Ambush 3. Cause 3000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles that are moving by shooting them. Now this mission is way easier than it sounds. You just need to shoot at the tank that is either driving towards you or retreating away from you. For example, I used the Foch B and I used the T-57 Heavy. As soon as the enemy saw me on my Foch B, they started reversing out, and every single shot from that point on counted. It would actually be way harder if it was 3000 HP of damage to stationary tanks rather than moving tanks. Even if the tank is turning in place, such as a Badger spinning in place, that counts as moving. As long as the tank is not moving the hull, it won't count. But if they're going backwards, forwards, whatever they're doing, it will always count. So this is easier than it looks. Ambush 4. Cause 2500 HP of damage while remaining unspotted at the moment the damage is caused, or destroy an enemy vehicle causing at least 1250 HP of damage to it. Now, for this one I would just recommend you to pick a Foch B, the MBTB, a T-57 Heavy, an autoloader, and push a separated tank who is away from the pack, pump them full of holes, cause all their HP in damage and just destroy them, and this will be relatively easy. Alternatively, you could do this and just play your sniper tanks Leopard, STRV, TBV, and it's roughly, on the high alpha tanks it would be 4 shots and you will be done. 3 shots if you get lucky, high rolls. It's not too complicated. But again, I would recommend you to go for this second condition. Ambush 5. Destroy 3 enemy vehicles before receiving any damage to your vehicle, or destroy 2 enemy vehicles spotted by you. With this, you could play either your sniper tank destroyers and just do 3 kills, but I don't like this one because you rely heavily on luck. What I did, I played my Borask and I played my Miel. I mounted CVS, I mounted optics, and I mounted the vertical stabilizers. I rushed into a spotting bush like a light from the start of the game. I spotted a lot of enemies and then I pushed them as I knew who I had to kill, and it's 2 kills with a decent clip dump of the Borask. This made it really easy. Ambush 6. Cause 1000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles that are unspotted when the damage is caused, or destroy 4 enemy vehicles of 3 different types. For this mission, I used the FV4005 and I was blinding AP shots in the bushes, and I just hit 1 AP shot and the mission was completed. And for the second completion, I used the Borask and I just killed 4 tanks of 3 different types. It's not really that hard, especially if you get down to a tier 6 game, tier 7 game. It's easy to get the kills with the Borask. Even Progetto, whatever could work for this. I would only recommend you to go for the 1000 damage of blinds if you have game knowledge, if you have understanding of where the enemy vehicles might be. Otherwise this might be tricky. Also, a note, if an enemy vehicle gets unspotted, you cannot immediately shoot. You need to wait for roughly 3 seconds for the tank to be unspotted before it counts as a blind, because the 3-second time is reserved for the guy who spotted him, and he would get the assist even if the tank is invisible at the time you hit it. Ambush 7. Cause and assist a total of 5000 HP of damage. For this mission, I just used the MBTB, the T-57 Heavy, Foch B, anything. You can do 5000 damage, even track your vehicles, it counts as an assist. And this is the way to do it, in my opinion. It's not RNG, you just need to have a good game. Alternatively, if you're not confident in doing 5000 damage, you could play something like the Batchet and put spotting equipment, commander's vision system, optics, and low noise, and just go spot the tanks. Like just driving on the open, you might spot somebody, get assist, and then just dump your clip on the Batchet and you will be done. Ambush 8. Cause 2000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles outside the view range of your vehicle. For this mission, again I would recommend you to play the Grille, the Leopard one, the DBV, the Concept 5, S-Tier V works nicely. I used the Leopard and the S-Tier V, mainly because on the S-Tier V I haven't mounted optics. That's very important. Do not mount view range enhancing equipment because it gives you extra distance you will be able to cover. For example, if you have optics you would have 445 meters, you have to shoot them outside of 445. If you don't have optics you will have like 390 meters and you have that extra 40 to 50 meter gap which you will be able to shoot. Destroy 3 enemy vehicles from a distance of 300 meters or more. Now this mission is arguably the hardest ambush mission of the Dravec set. I used the DBV and, if I remember correctly, I used the FV 4005. But I've heard people have success at tier 8, for example the SE130 PM, the Scorpion G, the ASFOC. All of these work nicely because you have high alpha and enemies have relatively low HP, and let's say you would get a tier 6 game with your ASFOC. One of your allies shoots a tank once and then you just shoot the double shot at him for 780 alpha, you will probably get the kill. The tricky part is just remembering to position yourself 300 meters away in a way that you actually have a shot when the enemy is one shot. And again, I would highly recommend you to look at the distance marker mode for this. Pay attention to it from the 300 meters. You don't want to get a kill from 290 meters and then it doesn't actually count. Ambush 10. Cause 2500 HP of damage during the first 4 minutes of the battle. Well, here we are again. The battle length is usually roughly around 4 minutes until the game is over, so just play whatever tank you wish at this point. You have to play a little bit aggressively because you know that you have to do the damage at the start. I would recommend a Foch B, T57 Heavy, MBTB, something that has a big clip or dump or just confident alpha where you can peek in the city and just play the game. Ambush 11. Cause damage to immobilized enemy vehicles 4 times and cause 3000 HP of damage. On this mission, I used the Foch B and I used the MBTB. Yes, I'm dirty for using both, but it made it so easy because on both tanks you have 6 shells that you will be able to shoot. If the first one hits the track and you hit all the 5 others, or even if they use a repair kit, you still have a spare shot to track them again, and you will be able to do the 4 shots after they're double tracked even. And to cause 3000 HP of damage, that just comes along while you're doing this. So yeah, I would recommend an autoloader, 57, Foch, MPTB, whatever you have access to. Ambush 12. Cause 4 times more damage to enemy vehicles than the hit points of your vehicle. Now this mission is also quite tricky. I used, personally, the ASFOC and the Scorpion. On the ASFOC I had to deal 4400 damage, and on the Scorpion I had to deal 4600 damage. Other good options are the S-Tier VS1, where you would only have to deal 4000 damage, the UDES from the Tech Tree, tier 8 one, it only has 1000 HP if I remember correctly, so you would only have to deal another 4000 damage, and it's basically just have a good game on all of these tank destroyers. I wouldn't recommend you to play a Borask because that's already 5000 HP, and the higher tier you go, the more damage you need to deal. So I would recommend you to stick to tier 7 to tier 8. Even an E25 or SU1 to 244 would work really well, I think. Ambush 13. Destroy 2 heavy tanks, causing at least 1250 HP of damage to each of them. Now, at the time of recording this video, this mission is currently bugged. You do not have to focus heavy tanks, it works on any tank, and that makes it relatively easy. You can even You can pick a Foch B, you can pick an NPT-B, you can try to the medium flank, you can just kill one tank, reload, go again, kill a second tank, and you're done with the mission. That's how I did it. That's how I recommend you to do it. And I recommend tier 10 because causing 1250 HP of damage to a lower tier tank can be quite tricky, because if they would, for example, if you would be focusing a Borask, if he takes one shot, he would be under 1250 HP, which means he wouldn't qualify anymore. So if you go to tier 10, mediums have roughly 1800 to 2000 HP. They can take a shot or two and still be in the range of your damage. So that's what I recommend you to do. Ambush 14. Cause 5500 HP of damage or destroy 6 enemy vehicles. For this one, I would recommend you to play the T-57 Heavy and the Stinger if you have gotten it from ranked. These tanks have a lot of HP, you can trade with them, they have a high damage output. I would not recommend you to go for the 6 kills, I would recommend you to go for the 5500 damage, because this is very more comfortable, it's less RNG, nobody can steal the kills from you. And yeah, just ultimately play whatever tank you want, what you like, what tank you're good at causing damage on. It could be a Grille, it could be a Leopard, it could be whatever. But I recommend the heavies as they have HP and you can go brawl against enemies. Ambush 15. Cause 25% of the total damage caused by your team and cause 6000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles. Now this mission is probably the hardest mission from the whole ambush set. I would recommend you to play tier 10 or tier 11 because you need to deal 6000 HP. And this gets very tricky if you go down to tier 9, 8 and 7. The best ideal condition for this mission is if your team is actually losing very hard. Let's say 1 to 15, 2 15, 3 15. You manage to pump out 6000 damage and your team dies. Because that way you will be guaranteed to have at least a 25% of the damage caused by your team. So this is probably the only time you want your team to be losing very, very hard, because if your team is losing very hard, they haven't dealt a lot of damage. As long as you fulfill the 6000, this 25% will also fill. I used for this the Foch B and I used the FV, and it was really hard because, of course, all of a sudden I had to get games which were 14-15, 15-13. My team basically caused always 30,000 damage total, so I had to deal this and this amount of damage. I put the screenshots on the screen from my completion, so it's really comes down to the game you have. For this mission I would also recommend tanks that have high damage output, such as the Foch B and the 57. Leopards and such can be quite okay as well, but I feel like if you're getting one of those lucky games where you are losing very hard, the 57 and the MBTB and the Foch B are just able to dump out the 6000 damage way more comfortably than the sniper tanks. Assistance 1. Destroy an enemy arty and enable your allies to cause 1000 HP to your stunning, spotting or tracking. For this mission, I would recommend you to play the EBR 105, and if you have, play the EBR 75. If you don't have, just play any other tier 10 light or light that you're comfortable with. First, do the 1000 HP, and after the enemies have been spreading around the map, make your way to the middle of the map and just go for the arty and kill the arty, and your mission is completed. Very easy with the EBRs, because high HE, damage, one-shottable, you don't have to faff around killing them, and you're golden. Assistance 2. Spot 3 enemy vehicles while remaining unspotted, or stun enemy vehicles 10 times. But this mission, it's basically one and done on whether you choose to do the arty condition or the spotting condition. I did it on ELC and the Manticore. I basically mounted full spotting setup. I went to a good distance away from the heavies. I spotted the heavies crossing to their flank, 3 spots, and I was done. You could also play RTs. It's only 10 stuns. You will do this every time if you play the 261 and the Batchet RTs or the Lorraine RT, whatever. It is very not hard mission to do. Assistance 3. Immobilize 4 enemy vehicles by destroying their tracks, or stun enemy vehicles for 130 seconds in total. I would recommend you to go for the 130 seconds of stun on this one, if you want to play the artillery. It's basically one and done again with 261 and the Batchet 155-58 tier 10 RT. You just shoot, load full stun HE and just shoot, and you will guaranteed have 130 seconds if you know how to, position yourself. Even if you don't, you will probably do 130 seconds, let's be real. But yeah, I would recommend this one. If you don't want to play RT and you want to track the people, I highly recommend you to play like the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen or EBR 75, EBR 105. Load high explosive and just go to the heavy flank or medium flank and just keep tracking continuously with the HE on different tanks. Assistance 4. Destroy 2 enemy vehicles from a distance of 100 meters or less, or stun enemy medium tanks or tank destroyers 6 times. Once again, I would recommend to go for the artillery condition with your 261, with your 212A, with your M53 with the small gun, with your Batchet RT. Just wait for the mediums to get spotted, wait for the tank destroyers to get spotted, and just continuously stun them. You will be probably done in one game, and hip hip hooray. If you want to do 2 kills, I would recommend probably the LT 432, EBR 105, EBR 75, some light that can either deal high damage or they can ram. And you just go for this 2 kills and make sure it's from 100 meters or less. Assistance 5. Enable your allies to destroy 4 enemy vehicles by spotting, tracking, or stunning them. For this mission, I would recommend you to play the Manticore or the ELC even 90. Alternatively, very good options are the EBR 105 and EBR 75. And as a note, I would highly recommend for you to platoon with 2 of your teammates or friends, clanmates, whoever you can find, who will be able to shoot your spots. If you just press your T key when you know that you spotted somebody, they focus him, boom, kill done. If you can't get the spotting kills, that's where the EBR and the EBR 75 and other lights with high HE damage and good guns come in handy, because you will be able to just blank behind the heavies and you will be able to shoot HE on their tracks and let your teammates kill them after you attract them. You have to be tactical with this, but this is the easy way to do it. And this is probably one of the hardest missions on this whole assistance set. Assistance 6. Enable your allies to cause 3500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles by spotting or tracking them and remain unspotted. Or stun medium tanks and tank destroyers for 130 seconds. I don't think going for this 130 seconds is very smart because it's on mediums and tank destroyers. But I would recommend you to go for the 3500 HP of spotting while you're unspotted, because you can play the Manticore, you can play the T100, you can play the AMX 13105. You just need a decent spotting map and you will probably be done with this in one go. Just remember to always mount your best low noise exhaust that you can on your lights, so the chances of you getting spotted get highly mitigated. Also, you can platoon up with, again, 2 of your TD friends. For example, you play a Manticore and they play 2 DBVs or Grillas, and you basically need 2 spotting runs. Boom, you probably have 3.5k. Assistance 7. Be the top player on both teams by experience earned and survive the battle. But this, never play RT. Being top XP on RT is extremely difficult. I would recommend you to play a tier 8 light that can deal damage, and that is again important. if you want to go for experience, you need to deal damage to your own spots. So what I would recommend you to do is to play either the EBR-75 or the LT-432 or something similar at tier 8. Spot for yourself and deal the damage to them. Make sure you do not die, because that's part of the condition. And if you play a lower tier light, for example tier 8, and you get into a tier 9 game, you will get an XP boost by shooting tier 9 tanks. So I would highly recommend you to focus the tier 9 tanks, the tier 10 tanks, and you will be easily top on XP if you just have a good game with your light while shooting. Assistance 8. Enable your allies to cause damage to 6 enemy vehicles by spotting, immobilizing or stunning them. Now again, I would recommend you to play the EL-790 and the Manticore, as you will just be able to spot and your teammates can shoot. One funny note for this mission is, as it doesn't have to be specific amount of damage, it can be any amount of damage. You could even platoon. You could play an EBR-105 or EBR-75 or Lynx, or whatever light, actually whatever wheel light, and you can have a platoon mate play a Czech autocannon and shoot HE at the spots. As long as he hits one high explosive bullet on the enemy, it deals 1 damage, it will count as 1 damage getting hit. Or just play TDs normally and you will probably be able to do this. Again, remember, if you cannot spot enough tanks on one flank, you will always be able to load high explosive and then go behind the heavies, for example, and as long as somebody gets shot while you have tracked them, you will, the mission will tick up. Assistance 9. Destroy 2 enemy light tanks or SPGs. Or cause 1000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles that are unspotted when the damage is caused. I would highly recommend you to go for this 2 kills on lights or SPGs. But there's a little trick to this. If you play, for example, an EBR-105, make a platoon with your friends, invite 1 RT player, and invite 1 player on a regular light, for example a Tesak or a Shaden or a Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, doesn't really matter. But make sure that you play with 3 people in platoon, 1 wheeled light, 1 regular light, and 1 RT. And this way you will always have 3 conditions minimum. And even if 1 guy suicides on the enemy team, you will still have 2 chances to do this. If you play solo, there might be a lot of games where you'd never even see 2 lights or RTs. And the mission is basically not basically, it is straight up uncompletable from the start of the game. You might as well drive straight to the middle and go next, because you cannot even complete the mission. Assistance 10. Receive the Mastery Badge Class 1 or higher. So for this mission, I highly recommend you to not play a premium tank, but a Tech 3 light is much better. Tier 7, Tier 8 and Tier 9 lights from the Tech 3 have usually the lowest requirements, because on premiums they're being played for credits, and Tier 10s are the lights that are like top of the crown, so people are actually good at them. And the top ace requirement is usually from a game where they get 10k spotting or so, and it's harder to get the mission. So I would recommend you to play a Tech 3 light from tier 7, 8, 9, and again, while going for XP, as it's a mastery badge mission, you need to spot for yourself, and you need to cause damage to your own spots, so you do not share the XP with your teammates. I will leave links again in the description for websites where you can check the ace requirements for said tanks. These are Polyroid or Skill for LTU Index, and there's probably some others. So yeah, that's it. Assistance 11. Enable your allies to cause 4000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles by shooting, tracking or stunning them, or stun enemy vehicles for 150 seconds in total. The stunning one, if you're a good RT player, I would recommend you to go for the stunning one. If you're not RT player or you just don't want to play RT, 4000 spotting isn't too bad. Again, you can play Manticore at Team 100 Light, platoon up with your team friends who go on tank destroyers. You spot, you don't even have to be unspotted for this, you just spot 4000 and you will be done with the mission in probably one try if you get on the good map. Assistance 12. Spot 6 enemy vehicles and survive the battle, or stun 2 enemy vehicles with a single shot 6 times and survive the battle. For this one, I would recommend you to play EBR 75 and the EBR 105. You need to make an aggressive spot run. I would recommend you to do it on the heavy flank, or in a way that you will be seeing where the heavies are pathing. You spot the heavies, you turn around, and then you go and spot the other flank. And that's usually securing your 6 spots, and then you just need to make sure that you play safe and survive. Alternatively, you can play 261 or any other arty. I recommend something that shoots fast with relatively okay splash. If you just angle yourself in a way where you're able to shoot at the heavy flank, there's usually 2 tanks at least clumped up, and you will be able to stun them, and just hope that your team wins because you're otherwise probably not surviving. Assistance 13. Destroy 2 enemy vehicles with your shots while moving at the speed of at least 30 kilometers an hour, or cause damage to enemy vehicles that are moving by shooting them 7 times. But this mission, you have to get, I recommend you to get the Czech autocannons. You load high explosive, you go into some bush and you see a heavy tank driving at you. You basically hold your left mouse button and the mission is completed in 1 second, as you hit 7 bullets with high explosive, dealt 7 damage, and mission is completed. I did it on Tesak, and I did it on Squall, and it was 1 game on each. Boom, no problems, done. Go next. Assistance 14. Enable your allies to cause 2000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles spotted by you. Remain unspotted when the moment the damage is caused. Or stun heavy tanks for 80 seconds. For this, I used the 261 and the badge at 15558. I played 1 game on both and the mission was completed. It was so easy, I didn't have to worry about anything. Just, I think it was 3 shots on Badget and 2 shots on 261. I shot at the clump of tanks and the mission was completed. If you don't want to do that with Arty, I would recommend you to do it with Manticore or some sneaky light. And it's only 2000. It's basically 1 tank that needs to die to your spotting while you're unspotted. It's not hard. Assistance 15. Damage caused, including damage and your assist, must total 6000 HP. This one is really easy. It's only 6000, which means if you play for an example the EBR 105 and the Manticore, with EBR you can do 3000 damage and you can spot 3000 and it's done. With Manticore you can even do 2000 damage by shooting and 4000 spot and game mission is over. You just need to have a decent light game, that's it. There's no trick to it. Boom, done. And that's the last mission for the Dravec. Let's get to the Blackrock ones. Vanguard 1. Be the top player in both teams by damage cost and destroy 3 enemy vehicles of 2 different types. For this mission again, I would highly recommend you to play something with a decent alpha damage, so you're able to steal those 3 kills. I did this mission on a Type 5, and then I used the BC 176. You basically just need a good game to be top damage, and as soon as you make 3 kills of 2 different types, just focus on dealing damage, and boom boom, done. Vanguard 2. Destroy 2 enemy vehicles during the first 4 minutes of the battle, or cause 2500 HP of damage during the first 4 minutes of the battle. Again, this is pretty much a normal game of World of Tanks nowadays. Just pick a decent tank that you're good at causing damage. I did the mission on Type 5 and the BC-79. 4 shots on each and mission was completed. Not hard. I highly recommend you to go for the damage and not for the kills. If you can get the kills, cool, it's a bonus, but the damage comes way easier. Vanguard 3. Destroy an enemy tank destroyer, causing at least 1000 HP of damage to it, or destroy an enemy heavy tank, causing at least 1500 HP of damage to it. For this mission, I would again recommend you to play the Type 5 Heavy or the BC-79 or whichever tank you're good at dealing damage. Make sure you focus the single same target as you need to deal 1500 damage and kill the same tank that you cause the damage to. Vanguard 4. Destroy 2 tracked enemy vehicles or destroy 4 enemy vehicles. You could either go for the 4 kills or the 2 kills, it doesn't really matter. I would recommend you to get a platoon of friends with you who prepare the kills for you. If one guy plays, for example, a T-57 Heavy or a 50B, he can track for you and you just kill the 2 tanks that are tracked and mission completed. GG, go next. Vanguard 5. Cause 4500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles within the view range of your vehicle. Again, the same story. Play whatever tank you're comfortable with. I played the Type 5 Heavy and the BC-79, and I just went close range brawling, did 4,500 damage, and went to the next mission. Vanguard 6. Block 3000 HP of damage or cause 3500 HP of damage to enemy heavy tanks. I would recommend you to just go for the 3000 blocking. It's honestly not too hard if you have the Taschenratte, you have the mouse, you have the Type 5, even Type 4. You just play a normal game and try to peek a little bit extra even when you're reloading, because that makes them shoot you. Angle your armor and you're probably gonna get 3000 blocking. 3500 HP to heavy tanks is sometimes a bit tricky because it's only to heavy tanks, so I would highly recommend you to go for the blocking. I mean, you can go for both at the same time, and if you get one, good. Vanguard 7. Cause 2500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles of the same tier or higher by shooting them from a distance of 50 meters or less, or destroy 3 enemy vehicles of the same tier or higher from a distance of 50 meters or less. So on both of the conditions, you need to destroy tanks or cause damage to tanks that are same tier or higher, and this means I would never recommend you to play tier 11 because you will pretty much every battle get matched up against the tier 10s, and that means you will not be able to do the damage on the tier 10s. I highly recommend you to just play tier 10, and then you can do damage to both tier 10s and tier 11s. So either play tier 10 and just cause the 2500 damage, or play BC-176 and Skoda T-56 and do the kills from proxy distance of 50 meters, again with the high alpha and the high burst. That's the second best option. Vanguard 8. Destroy 4 enemy medium tank or tank destroyers, or block 2500 HP of damage with while your vehicle is stationary. For this mission, I would recommend you to play on the Ratte and the Type 5 or the mouse. One of those 3 or 2 of those 3. Position yourself a far distance away and just let the enemy shoot you while you're angled. You can turn your turret freely, but do not turn your hull, and 2.5k blocking should be relatively easy. Also, Type 4 Heavy is good for this. I personally wouldn't recommend to go for the kills because it's only on mediums and tank destroyers, and there's a lot of heavies right now in the matchmaker, so this will be annoying. Also, mediums and tank destroyers usually play the different flanks, or oftentimes play on the different flanks, so they're not all in the same location. Vanguard 9. Destroy 4 enemy heavy or medium tanks, or cause 4500 HP of damage to enemy heavy or medium tanks. On this mission, pick your T-803, pick your BC, pick your damage dealing heavy tanks, and just go to the heavy flank and focus the heavies and have a nice game. That's it. There's nothing special to it. Focus heavy tanks and medium tanks on the flank and do the mission. Vanguard 10. Block 4000 or cause 6500 to enemy vehicles. For this mission, I personally used the tier 11 tanks, the T-803 and the BC-79, and I just caused 6500 damage to enemy tanks. You could again do the same trick as on the last mission, where you just sit still, you wiggle and you angle your armor, you block 4000 if you're not confident in doing the 6500 damage. That might be the easier route, but it's up to you. I did the damage, pick whichever you like, and good luck. now we have reached the missions where you have to only complete them once, aka the Vanguard 11. Destroy 6 enemy vehicles of 3 different types, or have the damage blocked by armor exceeding 3 times the hit points of your vehicle. For this, if you are doing it solo, blocking could be an option, but it's highly RNG. I didn't really like it because it was hard to make my enemies to shoot me. I did it on a mouse ultimately. I did not mount my hardening, I was just angling in the middle of outpost, and I blocked 10,000 damage and I went next. But if you do 6 kills, which is probably less RNG, I highly recommend you to play again with a 2-man or 3-man platoon. They prepare the kills for you and you steal the kills, and it's very simple, not much RNG required, and it's easy completion. Vanguard 12. Have the total damage caused and damage blocked by your armor equal or exceeding 5 times the hit points of your vehicle. For this mission, I know a lot of people struggled. From my friends who completed this, they used, for example, a Type 4 heavy without hardening. They sat in the middle of the live oaks, they blocked 9,000 damage and against tier 7 tanks, and they dealt 1,000 damage, and they had roughly 10,000 combined blocked and damage, and the mission was over. I personally I tried it with the mouse, just purely blocking. I would not recommend purely blocking. I think you just play a mouse game and you can do 15,000 combined by blocking or doing damage. Alternatively, just forget the mouse, as I did, and I just played the BC 176. I got a really good game of 8,000 damage at tier 8 game, and I don't expect it to happen for you guys, but it's an option. But yeah, I think Type 4 heavy in a low tier matchmaking is really big success on this mission. Vanguard 13. Cause 9000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles, or cause 4500 HP of damage to tracked enemy vehicles. If you are a sane person, I would recommend you to get a platoon again, have somebody track for you, and then shoot when the enemy is tracked for 4500. This is far easier than doing 9000 damage. If you're crazy like me, I played the BC 79 and I was one shot shy of 10,000 damage. I think I even didn't penetrate my HE at the end. I would have had 10,000 damage game on Westfield. I got the 9,000 damage, I was very happy, and went to next game. It's really tough mission, but again, I recommend you to play platoon and not do the 9,000 damage. Vanguard 14. Cause 6,500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles that hit your vehicle. Once again, same as on the Dravec set, you do not need to wait for the enemies to hit your tank. You can shoot them, and if they end up shooting you at some time in the game, the damage you have dealt for them will count up. It will remember the damage you have dealt to the tank. So I recommend you to shoot the tanks, and if they shoot you, that's great. Maybe you want to get shot by them on purpose so the damage actually counts that you have dealt to them. If somebody shoots you, shoot them back, focus them. That's what I did on Taschenratte. I remember I did it on Taschenratte, but I'm sure Type 5 heavy could very easily work. I wouldn't recommend a mouse because doing 6,500 on a mouse can be quite tricky. So I think the best tanks right now would be like the T803, the BC79, the Taschenratte, or the Type 5. Vanguard 15. Cause, receive, and block a total of 16,000 HP of damage. Now this sounds like it's a lot, but for me, this was really easy. I did it on Taschenratte. I had my Bond HP, I had some HP from the upgrades. I went on one line Muravanka from the north spawn. I basically blocked 7,000, I did 5,000 and I died. I basically had the mission done in one game. It was the first attempt at the mission I did, and I completed it on the first attempt. Just make sure you die at the end somehow by losing your HP if you think you're not able to get any more blocked or any more real damage by either crashing or just turning sideways and hoping that the enemy shoots you. Ambush 1. Be the top player in the team by experience earned and cause 3500 HP of damage. For this mission, again, I highly recommend you to spot for yourself. Do not snipe in any case or any circumstance. I would not recommend the Leopard 1 or the DBV or the Grille or the STRV, but a T-57 Heavy, a Stinger, Bosch B, something that can really go brawl, close range, and make sure that you are not splitting the XP of the damage you cause, because that's how you get the highest XP possible. And it is also very easy to cause 3,500 damage when you play tanks with high HP and some armor. Ambush 2. Cause 3,500 HP of damage before receiving any damage to your vehicle, or destroy 3 enemy medium tanks or tank destroyers. I did personally not go for the kill one, I did the damage while I was full HP. I played the DBV 152 and I played the STRV tier 11, and I just remember to mount your low noise so you don't get spotted by accident and you don't take damage, mitigate any chances, stay safe distance away, keep an eye on the lights and the enemy lights, and just do your 3,500 damage, and that's it. Good luck. Ambush 3. Cause 4,500 HP of damage while remaining unspotted at the moment the damage is caused, or destroy an enemy heavy tank causing at least 2,000 HP of damage by shooting it. For this mission, I used the Foch B and I used the MBTB, and I just basically YOLO'd a heavy tank who was alone, and I one-clipped them, I sent them to garage, and I went to next mission. If you don't have the Foch B, if you don't have the MBTB, I would recommend you to go for this 4,500 while unspotted. Remember to use low noise. I highly recommend to use low noise. Use STRVs or DBVs and hope for the right game where you're able to fire for 4,500 HP of damage from a decent distance away. I would not recommend an FV because you will probably get spotted as you shoot, because it's, you know, big as the planet. So yeah, good luck. Ambush 4. Score 6 armor penetrating hits in a row and cause 4,000 HP of damage. For this mission, I used the Concept 5 and I used the Foch B. With the Foch B, I just YOLO'd in with my clip. I did 6 out of 6 clip. The first condition was completed. I went back, I shot a few more times, and the 4,000 damage was also completed. Boom, easy. With the Concept 5, the gun was recently buffed. The gun is very nice, the gold pen is very good. Make sure that you take safe shots, safe pens, for 6 shots in a row. And after you're done with the 6 shots, you can start just dealing it extra damage, boom, boom, boom. And the mission is not too hard. You could do it on easy on Leopard or STRV or whatever. But again, I recommend some tank that has some mobility, that can play a bit, that is a bit more versatile than an STRV, because you want to go close range to secure 6 pens in a row. Cause 2,000 HP of damage to tracked vehicles or destroy 2 heavy tanks. For this mission, I used the MBTB and I used the FV 4005 because I wanted to be, you know, funny. With the FV I did the 2 kills, and with the MBTB I just did the damage on tracked enemy vehicles. I wouldn't recommend you to play the FV, but I personally played it because I wanted to have some variety, some fun from playing the Foch B and other tanks, so yeah, it's not too hard. If you have an autoloader tanks, just go for this one and you will probably have it in 1 or 2 clips of damage. Ambush 6. Destroy 4 enemy vehicles from a distance of 300 meters or more, or cause 2,500 HP of damage to enemy tank destroyers. For this mission, I would highly recommend you to go for the damage on the tank destroyers. 4 kills from 300 meters is extremely tricky, and 2,500 HP of damage to enemy tank destroyers is really not that difficult if you have the Foch B, if you have the 57 heavy and whatever else autoloaders. Just make sure you focus the tank destroyers and it's usually 2 clips of damage, even 1 clip on the Foch if you get a ram, and you will be golden with this 2,500. I also recommend, if you want to make your life a little bit easier, platoon up with 2 extra tank destroyers. So go in a 3-man platoon. If you play a 57, ask, for example, somebody to play the Jagdpanzer and Badger, for example, and you will have 2 assault TDs on the enemy team. And that is over 4000 HP of potential you can do to them. Ambush 7. Cause 4000 HP of damage to moving enemy vehicles by shooting them. Once again, same as on the Dravec, this mission is not hard. It is actually way easier to do damage to moving tanks than it is to do damage to stationary tanks. For example, if you pick a Foch B, as I did, and I played MBTB for the second mission, second completion here, you just basically start unloading on them, they get scared of you, they start backing off, and every single shot is gonna count. Boom, 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 boom. Just make sure you do not track them, because then they will be stationary and it won't count. Just make sure you don't track them, cause damage to them while they're backing off or driving at you, and it's very simple. Ambush 8. Destroy an enemy light tank during the first 3 minutes of the battle, or cause 2750 HP of damage to enemy medium or light tanks. Now, the same person would probably go for this damage mission. Again, make sure that you platoon with 2 mediums, so you can at least guarantee 2 mediums on the enemy team. And go for them with your Foch, with your MBTB, whatever it may be, with your friends. Make sure, ask your friends to not shoot them, and ask if you can shoot the mediums for this amount of damage first. When you're done with this, just play the rest of the game normally. What I did, because I was a bit special in the head and I wanted some challenge, I wanted to kill the light in the first 3 minutes. For the first completion, I played the Batchet, and I just YOLO'd enemy light. And for the second completion, I played the CS63. I think the map was steps. I waited for the tanks to go right, I waited for the tanks to go left. I was making spins in my base for 1 minute, and after that I drove to the mid-road. I ramped the guy in the bush in the mid-road, and I had the mission done as I ramped the guy. Boom, he died. Mission over, go next. Ambush 9. Cause damage 4 times to enemy vehicles that are unspotted when the damage is caused, or destroy 5 enemy vehicles of 3 different types. For this mission, I would highly recommend you to go for 5 kills of 3 different tanks. Do this in a platoon. Again, ask your platoon mates to let you get the kills, and you will be having way more fun and way easier time than trying to blind random 4 enemy vehicles. If you want to blind 4 enemy vehicles, people have done it on the KPZ-07, the shit pack. They loaded high explosive and they just blinded all the bushes, but this requires a lot of game knowledge and understanding of where the enemy vehicles might be, and it's 4 shots. Personally, I did 1 completion on the Foch B. I basically just shot random blinds for an entire game on safe heaven into the K-line bushes, and I had dealt 1.6k damage to a hacker who was sitting on the other side. And for the next completion, I just played a Borask, and I did 5 kills of 3 different types. This was way easier than doing the blind mission. So I would highly recommend you to play the Borask or the Progetto or something like this at tier 8 in a platoon. Ask your teammates to, or platoon mates to, let you get the kills. It's only 5 kills, it's not that much. There was already missions where you had to do 6 kills. And go next. Ambush 10. Destroy 6 enemy medium or light tanks, or destroy 3 enemy vehicles spotted by you. As of recording this video, this mission is bugged. The mission counter in game, while you're in the battle, it displays the kills. It counts the kills only on the first spots, on the tanks that you have spotted for the first time in the game. So I played a Borask on mines. I spotted enemy tanks while I was driving up the hill. I killed the tanks who were going up the hill. I only got 2 kills on the tanks that I actually spotted, but as I respotted them and killed the guys who I respotted, they also counted in garage, but they didn't count in game. So I was confused what happened. This mission might get fixed at some point, because currently it's bugged, and you just need to re-spot the tank and kill the tank. You don't need to be the first person to spot the tank to do the kill. So yeah, I used the Borask and Miel. I would recommend you to do the same. They're very easy tanks to get the spots and the kills. And yeah, good luck. Ambush 11. Cause 5 times more damage than the hit points of your vehicle. Now this mission is very difficult if you're not a good player and you don't have the right tanks. This mission is made for the tier 8 tank destroyers. I used the as-fuck and I did 6000 damage on Siegfried line, and I needed to do 5500 damage. It actually took me like 5 battles in total to do this mission. I was expecting it to take me way longer, but yeah. The tanks I would recommend: as-fuck, as-fuck if you have it. You could use the Scorpion. You could use the tier 8 Astery S1 with maybe an ELC spotting for you in your platoon. You only had to do 5000. But I felt like the as-fuck was the most versatile tank for me, and I really liked that tank, so it was easy mission completion for me. Ambush 12. Destroy 3 enemy vehicles, causing at least 1500 HP of damage to each of them. Now this mission is the hardest mission for me from the entire Personal Mission 3 campaign. It took me like 50 battles or something to do this mission, and I was spamming Foch B and MBTB only. Of course you could use T-57 Heavy, 50B maybe the Imbattable, but for me I needed a tank that is able to delete the whole of the entirety of an enemy vehicle in a single clip. Because if, for example, you look at 1500 HP and you think about, what tanks are you able to kill? If you meet a Batchet, he has 1800 HP. If you meet a Leopard 1, he has 1850 HP. If you meet an FV, if you meet a Grille, if all of these tanks take just one shot of damage, you can erase them. They do not qualify for your mission anymore because they will have under 1500 HP. So this is the tricky part of the mission. You have to find people isolated, and you have to destroy them by yourself. If somebody's coming with you and they do 1 shot or 2 shots of damage while you're trying to kill them, it won't count. I was very close twice on this mission with the Foch B. Actually, one time was a proper heartbreak. I was a split second of killing a tank, and I got high rolled by an enemy Udes. One time I was on another 1 shot away, and ultimately I ended up doing it on MBTB on Ruinberg and destroying 3 tanks from pretty much full HP by myself. Ambush 13. Cause and assist a total of 9500 HP of damage. Now this mission it sounds like it's a lot, but it's actually not. For me, I completed this mission on the Batchet 25T, and I highly recommend you to do the same. I put full spotting setup on my Batchet, commander's vision system, optics, and low noise. I got into a highway game. There was no light, fortunately, on the enemy team or my team, and I spotted 9000 damage. I dealt 4000 damage. It was over 13,000 combined, and I only needed 10,500, and the game was over, and we went next game. Ambush 14. Destroy all enemy vehicles, or capture the base. Capture or defend the base. And cause 30% of the total amount of damage caused by your team. This is again the same as on the Dravec mission. You will have to hope, or the best condition for you is if your team is losing hard 1 to 15, 2 to 15, 3 to 15. They do not deal a lot of damage. You just do a decent game and you will have 30%. For example, let's say your team would cause a total of 10,000 damage and they would lose 15-0. That would mean you would have to only do 3,000 of that 10,000 damage that your team caused in that game. For me, I kinda had to sweat for this, because I played a Borask and I tried to get this 15-0 defeat, but it turned out that I did 6,500 damage on Borask in a tier 8 game, and that was 30%, that was enough for me. Also, I highly recommend you to open your calculator app on your PC. At the start of the game, when the countdown is happening, add the enemy team's HP into the calculator, and times it by 0.3, and you know the maximum amount of damage you will have to cause if the whole enemy team dies. Ambush 15. Cause 9,000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles. This is a really tricky mission. If you're not a good player, there might be you might have to play hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of battles to do this. Fortunately for me, I did this on the first ever attempt. I thought this mission is going to take me a long time, as it took, for example, the Killzer, who was the first to complete this whole Blackrock. It took him like 10 hours or something to complete this mission. For me, I basically completed my 14 mission, I turned on the 15 mission, I played the T-57 heavy tank, which I recommend for people for this mission. I ended up on Erlenberg, tier 11 game. I did 9,400 damage, and the mission was completed in one try. I was super happy, and yeah, it's a tough one, but I believe you can do it. I recommend Foch. FV if you're like, if you feel like you can do 9,000 on an FV. T-57 heavy is probably the most like comfortable tank to do 9,000, because you can do consistent games. Because you have a high HP, you have some armor, you have big DPM. So yeah, I would recommend the 57. Good luck. This one is a hard one. Assistance 1. Enable your allies to cause damage to 8 enemy vehicles by spotting, tracking, or stunning them. For this mission, I would recommend you to use the ELC and maybe the EBO-105 or Manticore, up to you. But for me, I used the ELC, I spotted one flank, I got 6 out of 8 from one flank, I went to the opposite flank, and I loaded high explosive with my ELC of all tanks, and I tracked the enemy heavies from behind, and my team shot them, and I got the mission done. This is how I recommend to do it. You can do it, you can pray for like a good spotting map, and just drive crazy circles with an EBR and hope that your team shoots them. Also, one big benefit of this is if you play the EBRs, ask for an artillery player in platoon, because they can hit shots that most of your teammates can't, because they can shoot across the map. You can play like a crazy man with your EBR, and you tell your arty who to shoot. They shoot him, boom, you get one, and then tell your arty to shoot the next guy who's your spot, and so on. Assistance 2. Be the top player on both teams by experience earned. Destroy an enemy light tank or SPG. Now for this mission, I would highly recommend you to play the EBR-105 and the EBR-75. Why? Because they're really good at killing light tanks or RTs, and they're also good damage dealers. And for this mission, as same for the Dravec and the other missions where you have to get XP, you want to be spotting for yourself, and you want to be dealing damage. So, for example, very good tank picks, like I said, would be the EBRs or even the LT-432. You spot for yourself, you deal damage to same tier tanks or higher. Higher tier tanks give you an XP boost. Don't spot for this mission, because ultimately you will share the XP with the guy who does the damage, and you might not get top XP. Assistance 3. Spot 6 enemy vehicles or stun enemy vehicles 12 times. Now this mission is the easiest mission in the whole game. You pick your light tank, you click 3 times R, you open the football match on the other screen, you drop to the middle of the map, you spotted 6 tanks, you explode, and you go next. Mission done. Don't even think about playing the arty, unless you really want to play arty for some reason. But you don't even need to survive, just spot 6, go next. Assistance 4. Destroy 2 enemy light tanks or SPGs. Now for this mission, I highly recommend you to play the Czech autocannons. Play the Tesak, play the Squall, play the Blesk. Also, when you're doing this mission with the autocannons, make sure that you ask for a light tank, wheeled light tank in a platoon with you. For example, if you play the Squall or Blesk, ask for an EBR 75 or Lynx. If you play Tesak, ask for EBR 105 to platoon with you. So you always add more conditions to your mission. Also ask for an RT in every battle. So make a 3-man platoon, you play check autocannon, your friend plays the EBR, and your other friend plays the RT. That way you have 3 conditions always on every game, and it's not down to RNG. If there only would be 1 light tank and no RT, you can't complete the mission, might as well drive through the middle and go garage. Assistance 5. Spot 6 enemy vehicles while remaining unspotted, or stun 3 enemy vehicles with a single shot 4 times. The RT one I would not recommend, because stunning 3 tanks with a single shot 4 times in one game is really RNG. This is you would have to hope for like Fjords or Sand River or something where all the heavies are clumped in the middle. Instead, go for the spotting one. I recommend EL790 and the Manticore. You put your best low noise exhaust and spotting setup on your tank, and you just spot from like 300 meter distance away of the heavies crossing to the city, and try not to get spotted. I don't recommend you to go on the tank and the flank where the lights are going or the mediums are going, because oftentimes mediums might have optics, there might be some EBI YOLOing, and it will ruin your mission. I just recommend you to spot firstly on the heavy flank, and then carefully if you don't get the 6 spots or the 2 crossing to the heavy flank. Assistance 6. Enable your allies to destroy 4 enemy vehicles by spotting, immobilizing, or stunning them. Funnily enough, this mission is the exact same as it was on the Dravec set. I recommend you to just get a platoon of TDs who will shoot your spots. You play in ELC or Manticore or whatever light that you feel comfortable with. You spot 4 enemy vehicles. Always remember, you will be able to track. If you don't get the spotting kills, you can always track and your teammates can finish them, and that way you can go next. But I recommend the spotting tanks like the ELC and the Menti. Even EBR could easily work, and good luck on the mission. Assistance 7. Destroy 2 enemy light tanks or stun enemy light tanks for 60 seconds in total. I did 1 completion personally on the stun. I was shooting on a Prokhorovka game at the light who I knew which bush he was in. This requires some game knowledge, you need to understand where the light might be. And I also recommend, if you play an RT for this one, you would platoon with 1 wheeled light and 1 regular light, so you can always guarantee 2 lights on the enemy team. And your lights can also, if they're smart, if they're good players, they can tell you where they think the enemy light is going to be by the angles they get spotted from, which might help you in blinding the lights for 60 seconds. But if you don't want to play the RT one, kill the 2 lights. Again, I highly recommend you to play the Tesak or the Squall, load a high explosive, and make sure you platoon up with a light, with a wheeled light, so you will always have the 2 lights in the game on every single game. Assistance 8. Spot 8 enemy vehicles and survive the battle, or stun 2 enemy vehicles with a single shot 8 times and survive the battle. I would highly recommend you to do the spotting one. I used the EBR 105 and I used the EBR 75. I made a spin through the middle of the map. I spotted 8 tanks and then I played very, very carefully. And that's how I recommend you to do it as well. Alternatively, you could go for the RT stun mission, but it's 8 shots where you stun 2 tanks in 1 shot. So it's really, again, down to RNG if the enemies are clumping up or not. So that's why I would highly recommend you to do the spotting one with the EBRs. If you don't have the EBRs, this might be a bit tricky because spotting 8, like over half the team with the regular light might be a bit complicated unless you get like a good map. For example, good map for this would be Paris out of all maps, because you're able to drive to the middle, you will spot like 10 heavies crossing to the south, and your mission will be auto-completed as long as you survive the game. Assistance 9. damage. Cause 3000 HP of damage to enemy vehicles, or destroy 2 enemy vehicles by shooting them. Moving enemy vehicles. I would not recommend you to go for the kills. If you can get the kills, that's good, but I would highly recommend just to focus on dealing the 3000 damage. Great tanks for this are going to be EBR 105, the tier 10 Rheinmetall Light, which is a great gun, and the Borking Kaffir, the new tier 11 light. These all tanks can easily cause 3000 damage in one battle. You don't even need a good map, you just need to have some light tank knowledge. Don't suicide, just be sneaky, deal your damage, and you will have this completed in no time. Assistance 10. Destroy 3 enemy vehicles from a distance of 100 meters or less, or destroy 2 enemy vehicles from a distance of 565 meters or more. For this mission, I would highly recommend you to play RTs. You just need to kill 2 tanks from 565 meters, and the 565 meter mark is going to be the yellow circle on your minimap when you play RT. Any tanks outside of that will count, any tanks inside of it will not count, and it should be a relatively simple mission. I did it on 261 and then I used the Patchet RT, but M53 for example could be great for this mission. Decent gun, good gun arc, and a big splash. Mission should be pretty easy to complete with this if you have the artilleries required. Assistance 11. Enable your allies to cause 4500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles spotted by you, or stun enemy medium tanks and tank destroyers for 170 seconds in total. I would not recommend to go for the stun because it's on mediums and tank destroyers. Just play a decent light game with the Manticore, ELC, T100 light, whatever tier 10 or 11 light you want, and it should be relatively easily done. It's only 4500 spotting, not too difficult. Tracking doesn't count, make sure it's spotting. Assistance 12. Enable your allies to cause 5500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles by spotting or tracking them, or stun enemy vehicles for 220 seconds in total. If you're an RT player and you're very comfortable with RT, 220 seconds of stun is not really a lot of time, especially when the enemy heavies are clumping up and you're able to shoot over and over into the same area. If you're not willing to play RT, I would recommend to play Manticore, the T100 Light, the EBR, and just do 5,500 spotting. It's not that difficult, you just have to hope again for a map where you can do this, and it's relatively simple. Assistance 13. Receive the Ace Tanker Mastery Badge. Now this might be a bit difficult because you have to play lights. I would not recommend to ever play RT because the Artillery Ace is extremely difficult. I would highly recommend you to again play the tier 8 or tier 9 Tech 3 lights. Go to a website like the Polaroid or Skill for LTU Index and check for a low ace requirement tank. I know people used the tier 9 Desak, the tier 9 whatever it's called. I personally used the LTTB because I felt comfortable dealing damage on it. Make sure that you are spotting for yourself once more and deal the damage to the spot tanks. I would not recommend you to spot because you are splitting again the spotting. You're splitting the experience with the person who deals the damage to the tanks if you are spotting. So you would need way more spotting to actually get the XP for Ace Tanker than dealing the damage by yourself. Assistance 14. Enable your allies to cause 5,500 HP of damage to enemy vehicles spotted by you and remain unspotted the moment you're getting the assistance, or stun enemy heavy tanks 16 times. If you're an RT player again, play 261 or M53 with the small gun or the tier 9 British RT with the small gun. Spam your 20-second reloads on the heavies and you will be done in no time probably on heavies. Or just play Manticore, a T100 or EBR, spot for 5,500 HP and you should be golden. Make sure that you're unspotted. And again, if you're going for the spotting damage, I highly recommend you to play in a platoon with 2 TD buddies who are shooting your spots. so you can guarantee that there's at least some people who know how to shoot. Assistance 15. Damage cost, including damage cost with your assistance, must total 9,000, or enable your allies to cause 5,500 HP of damage to vehicles stunned by stunning or tracking them. I would not do the tracking or stunning, this is a lot of damage. I mean, stunning is possible. You would play with double T-57 heavy in platoon, you would pick your Batchetarty, you would double stun somebody, they would go and clip the guy who you stunned and mission done. Or alternatively, just play a decent game on Manticore and EBR, get your 9000 HP and that's it. You can cause damage, you can spot. Good luck getting Malinovka, Prokhorovka, Highway, Redshire, all the other spotting maps. I'm sure you can do it. And now we come to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was really tough for me to edit it all together, and as I'm not really used to editing these longer form videos where I talk, I highly would appreciate if you like and sub. Thanks for that. And let me know in the comments below if you disagree with some of my choices, or if you would use some other tanks for the other missions. I know the list might not be perfect, but I tried to cover everything as widely and as broadly as I could, and I hope you will enjoy your tanks when you get them. They're pretty nice to play. I would highly recommend to go for them, and enjoy your year of premium and the badge. I'll catch you guys again, and good luck on the missions once more. Bye bye.